finally reached the big moment. You have been cooking for 3 days. You have all the sides on the table. You have this gorgeous bronzed turkey that you basted and babied for hours in the oven. Everybody's waiting at the table and you're ready to carve it, right? The stakes are really high. Everybody's watching you and you jump in and you get all prepared and wait a minute. Wait a minute. You can just barely get that knife through. This is embarrassing. So what happened? You put all this effort into cooking dinner, but you didn't think about the tools. You don't really need a huge long knife for most work. I mean, big, longer knives. This is a 10-inch knife. It's huge and it'll get through a whole cabbage, but it's pretty big and it takes a lot to control that much blade, and most people don't feel comfortable with it. So I think for the most part, tend to favor knives in about 7-inch length, and they come in all different styles. You can get, a 7-inch German-style chef's knife, or what we tend to prefer is more Japanese designs that are really excellent for things like vegetables and that sort of thing. Let's cut some celery.
Great.
So, we go through a lot of celery for Thanksgiving. So one of the things, I'll just break off a stalk there. You can just trim it up. And one of the nice things about that tip, as you can see, we'll flip that over. It can just make really fine cuts. So we can do a very tidy dice. Good Lord, this knife is sharp. We'll just do a really fine little chop, perfect for our stuffing.
Gorgeous.
I mean, I could have done that with my small knife, my Goldilocks knife.
Yeah, it's true.
But one of the things that's really important with a larger knife, a longer blade gives you more slicing potential. So there's a reason Japanese sushi knives are so long, right? You see knives very long. That's for very clean slicing.
Right.
So when you use a sharp knife, you're using the length of the blade for cutting. You're not sawing back and forth. It's a slice, so you want to make sure to use the entire length of that blade. Start at the heel and end up at the tip, or vice versa, depending what you're cutting. Remember, the longer the knife, the further that tip is away from the control point. We can compare the two, right? 10 inches versus 7 inches. If I'm using a 10-inch knife, I'm trying to control something way out there at the tip, if I'm mincing an onion, that sort of thing. So it's much harder, if this is my control point, to the tip of the knife, right? So 7 inches gives you plenty of length. It's the perfect compromise.
Do you have a preference for your blade handles, whether they're made of wood or composite or other materials?
I don't. I prefer the handle that fits best in my hand.
Right.
Different knife handles are different sizes. You may have a preference for wood, how it feels in your hand. Shaping really is more important. So a lot of Japanese handles are they're round or octagonal. They're very neutral, or with our Milk Street knives, they're very ergonomically shaped. They taper towards the handle for a good pinch grip. They swell in the middle, so they really fill your hand. And we spent a lot of time designing that handle, so it fits a lot of different hand styles and feels very secure and safe in your hand.
A couple folks are curious about this cutting board. Tell us about this particular board, but also what you look for in a good cutting board, and also what you don't look for in a cutting board.
That is a great question. We don't value our cutting boards. We tend to use whatever we have, right? And a cutting board is a huge part of the cooking process. So what I really look for in cutting boards is a soft surface cutting board, a cutting board that cushions the blade. So if the cutting board surface is very hard, when you cut down, let's pretend my fingers are a blade. As you cut down on that cutting board, it just forces that blade to curl over.
Yeah.
And the softer the cutting board, the gentler it is on that fine leading razor edge, so the longer your knife will stay sharp. So you ask me what I look for something that's really soft. So we absolutely love these rubberized Japanese cutting boards from Hasegawa. I think of these as the Cadillac of cutting boards, right?
Yeah.
They're very soft, they're light, they're a real pleasure to use. They have a wood core, so they're very stiff, Once you start using these, it's hard to go back
Yeah.
to anything else.
I agree.
And they really, the big point here, April, is they really make your knife last longer. All knives dull. You can spend $20,000 on a knife and it's still gonna dull because it's metal that's being banged into something.
But what about what is under the cutting board? What else is
that's a good
important in
question.
this equation?
So-
You would be asking about it if you could see it.
Peekaboo. So you always want to make sure your cutting board is on something that's going to prevent the cutting board from sliding around the countertop. You do not want to be chasing your cutting board as it's sliding across the counter trying to cut things. We've all done it.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous
Yeah.
when you're trying to cut something that's rolling away from you. So, a non-slip mat is perfect. This just doesn't budge and it holds the cutting board down safely. You can also put a wet towel,
Right.
Wet paper towels underneath, just something to anchor it to the countertop.
If you just hone your knives, is that sharpening them?
Honing is honing. Sharpening is something totally different. This is the most important thing you have in your kitchen next to your knife, because this is going to keep that knife sharp on a day-to-day basis. Honing is re-straightening each side of that knife blade. Each side of the knife blade is called the bevel. So the bevel, as we talked about on a Japanese style knife, is about 15 to 17 degrees. So you're running the knife down the length of the honing rod very gently. I mean, I feel like you always see people on cooking shows banging it away.
Yeah.
That damages the blade. It's a very gentle thing. I think we always think of that knife blade as being super durable and super hard, and it is a razor blade. It is microns thick. It could be microns thick diamond, and it's still gonna mush if you hit it hard enough.
Yeah.
When I'm honing, I'm just very gently sliding it up and down a few times on each side. So, dullness isn't just terrible to use,
Yeah.
unpleasant to use, it's dangerous. Remember, honing
Right.
is straightening it, sharpening is actually removing metal from that blade. I love to sharpen my knives. I collect knives, I have a few knives. But what a sharpening stone does is it really gives you total control over how you sharpen your knife. And I enjoy it. It's a bit like, learning how to drive a manual
Yeah.
transmission. It's
right.
something
Instead of
I
automatic.
think,
Yeah.
it's something I think everybody should know how to do, but I understand there's a lot of people don't want to do it. I drive automatic. I know how to drive manual. The Work Sharp stone system, it's two-sided, right? So you have a coarse side and you have a fine side, and it's very simple to use with a little practice. Pour some water on there, and we can just keep it wet, and it'll start absorbing water.
It's like a magic trick.
I know. It's you don't think a stone's going to absorb
No,
water, but it certainly does.
it's like a sponge.
Well, it's very porous, and you can feel the texture. The texture is now definitely changed. So how we do this? We're simply going to start. We're going to place the knife on that angle guide, and we're going to slide it across. You want to make sure that the pressure is really consistent. When you do that, if it starts twisting or turning, or if the weight's uneven, then the bevel isn't going to be even. So hold the knife securely, start on that angle guide, and just slide it across. It's just like that. It's very simple. If you want to, you can also break the knife length into sections, so you can sharpen it. Let's start with this section first, right? This is more the Japanese way of sharpening. So you stick with portions of the knife, and it's just back and forth, back and forth, and back and forth, and you'll feel the burr come up on that edge. So you do one section, then you do a second section, then you do that final section, keeping the pressure really even. And then you switch to the fine side, that white portion, to really polish the blade, to make it a little smoother, so it's not tearing as much. April, let's carve this gorgeous turkey.
Let's do it right this time.
So when you're carving a turkey, ideally you don't want to do it at the table. Let's be honest. Do it where it's easier, that you have more room to cut it.
You're not like reaching over wine glasses and stuff, right? No.
Try and do it back in the kitchen. So the first thing you want to do, we're gonna separate the wings. So again, we talked about this. It's the right knife. It's not the biggest knife. It's not the longest knife. It is the sharpest knife that feels good to you. So it can be a 7-inch knife, which to me is perfect.
Yeah.
It's really sharp, and we have a nice tip. When you're carving a turkey, you do want a knife with a tip because you have to sort of negotiate some nooks and crannies and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead. We're gonna take this twine off, and let's put that to the side. So, classically, as my grandfather always did, he would carve the meat off the bird itself. And let's be honest, that's a very difficult way to do it, and you end up with a lot of waste. So what I really recommend is breaking the turkey down into individual parts that it can be cut perfectly in the kitchen. So first thing we're gonna do is we're going to take the legs off the bird. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that tip just to cut around the skin. As you can see, I'm making a very clean, small cut right along the breast meat. I'm not cutting that beautiful breast meat that everybody wants a piece of, right? So we're gonna separate that leg. We're gonna take it down to the joint, and we can use our tongs here. Use tongs. That carving fork thing, you're just poking holes in meat, and it's inaccurate. If you think about tongs as an extension of your hand, it makes life much, much easier. So we're just gonna separate that down. We're gonna pull that leg off the turkey. So here we have,
Beautiful.
yeah,
Wow.
it's that easy. We have this leg here that we can then cut through the joint, which is very easy. We're not cutting the bone, we're sliding the knife in between the joints, and it's so sharp it just goes right through. So we can take that leg, let's put that one leg up top like that, and you can cut the dark meat off the turkey, or you can leave it, I'm just gonna leave it on, because there's always somebody at the table who wants all the dark meat. So let's just, that's you? Yeah. So let's go ahead, and we're just gonna put that right up there. That's the one thigh. It's a pretty small turkey too. So if you have a really large turkey, you can just cut the slices off the thigh. So let's go ahead and take that second leg off. You follow the shapes of a turkey, and it's really easy to take apart. So again, I'm just gonna pull that over, use my tongs to sort of gently loosen that up off the body, and we can take our knife, loosen it up, and it's gonna come right off. Oh, it smells great.
Yeah, it does. Wow.
So again, we have that drumstick and the thigh, and we'll cut right through there. And with a really sharp knife, you can see really clean cuts through that crisp skin.
Right, the skin is not jagged or torn at all.
No, you're not tearing it. And there's always somebody at the table who wants to be Henry VIII, nibbling away on that drumstick. So we'll take that thigh and we'll plate that there. Well, do you know anybody who eats the wings?
I mean, I feel like the wings are kind of chef snack.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Keep these in the kitchen.
For you.
Or wings go in the stock pot,
Yeah.
because wings, they're full of bone, they're full of cartilage, they're really great for enhancing a stock. So we've taken the legs off. We have these beautiful pieces here, and now we're addressing what really everybody wants. It's that white meat. So it's really not ideal to try and carve nice pieces with that breast attached. So what we're going to do is we're going to separate each half of that turkey breast and take it off the bone. So the tip of your knife, you can also do this if you're more comfortable with a small knife. We talked about our Goldilocks knife, and you can sort of start and make small incisions with that knife. So what we're going to do is follow the curve of the breastbone. So just make sort of small cuts and loosen that breast off the bone. The bone is a bit of a curve to it, so you're going to feel your knife just come down, and you're going to slide it right along that edge. And you can use your tongs to sort of pull that out, or you know, if you're in the kitchen and nobody's looking, you can use your hands to sort of gently pry that breast off the bone. And you can just slide your fingers in between, and we're gonna pull it off. I think it's important to use your hands when cooking, as long as you're not melting them.
Yeah.
And you sort of angle your blade away from you, right?
Yes. So you're angling your blade away from you. You can see I'm holding it up close. And again, you could, if you really wanted, use that small knife, which is very precise, to loosen that breast meat off the bone. And it's gonna come right off in one big piece. Oh, this is great. But my fingers are starting to get a little hot. So using the tip of that knife, I'm just gonna pull that right off. Let's switch back to tongs.
So, you know, tongs are good.
Yes, my favorite kitchen tool. So we're just separating that big breast right off that. So we end up with this beautiful, beautiful breast that we can now slice crosswise into beautiful slices with that very sharp knife, making sure that there's a bit of that delicious skin on each bite. And as you can see, I'm using the full length of the blade for a clean slice. I'm not sawing back and forth. And beautiful, beautiful slices here. Clean, beautiful, delicious turkey slices. Just shingle it out. So April, when you're properly carving a turkey, you're never really going through bone.
Right.
There's cartilage, but you're never going through bone. So if you're going through bone, you're doing something wrong.
Something's wrong. Yeah.
You're not chopping. You're just sort of following the natural anatomy of the turkey. When we're taking that white meat off the bone, we're sliding our knife down along the curve of the bone. So
Right.
you're never going directly through bone. Cutting through bone is pretty hard on knives. So you really want to avoid cutting through bone. So let's go ahead and we can start taking that second side off. You know, once you've done that first side, look, we don't get a lot of practice carving turkeys. So when you're taking that first side off, think about how it feels, right? Think about how your knife is following the curve of the breastbone, and the second side's so much easier.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and take that second side off.
While you're doing that, Matt, how do you feel about cutting boards that have like a groove around them? You know, there's some juice coming off of your turkey. It's nicely cooked in the sense that it has moisture to come out of it, right?
Yeah.
But do you like a cutting board that has that? Is there a word for that? Gravy groove?
I like gravy groove. It sounds like a dance, doesn't it? The gravy groove. April, to be honest, I don't particularly like them because it feels like wasted space. That's a serving board to me.
Yeah.
And it's also, if your turkey is releasing too much liquid, if your roast is releasing too much liquid, it hasn't rested
Right.
enough.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of those moat.
I like gravy groove better myself.
Gravy groove. I tend
Yeah.
to just use a really nice cutting board for everything. So that is how you carve a turkey. And then as the cook, you get to nibble all those delicious bits that don't end up going to the table. So this is a really well cleaned turkey carcass. So there's little bits of meat here and there, and those wings, which you may live in a house where people like the wings. I'm going to make stock with this now, and it's like a pot of turkey stock then gives you a dozen extra meals. You will be very thankful.
It's the best part of Thanksgiving.
The right tools make Thanksgiving so much easier, so much safer, more pleasurable, frankly. This is fun stuff. Enjoy your cooking. Choose the right knife, feels good in the hand, and keep it sharp.